Questions, then you take the next.
Yeah,
that works.
All right, so let's start maybe with a little info about you.
Yeah.
So your academic background, similar work experience,
Okay.
just
Well, I've
bit
never
about
been
you.
homeless.
No.
I graduated in history and political science from Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia. And most of my career has actually not been in homelessness, it's been in international development, so working around the world.
Okay.
And I came to this field of homelessness about 11 years ago, basically because international development meant I was traveling a lot, which is great, but it became too much.
Yeah.
Because I had my son Nigel, he was young, I didn't want to be always off and away, I wanted to be closer to home, so I started to look for work that could keep me in the community activism field, if I could put it that way, and but would keep me more local. So I saw that they were looking for someone here, and I applied for the CEO job, and somehow they gave it to me.
It's 11 years, wow.
Yeah, already.
It's been a while now. So how would you describe the environment you work in?
The environment I work in is not at all what people would think it is when they think of working in the field of homelessness. You think of human tragedy, you think it must be sad, it must be a bit grimy, and that kind of thing. And instead, it's not that at all. It's a very upbeat place here. People are they believe in what they're doing. So there's a lot of passion. We're helping people solve tragedies that they have in their life. So even those people, when they come here, are feeling uplifted. And so it's a very upbeat kind of an environment. There's a lot of humor around here.
Nice.
We like to laugh. And as you can imagine, in the homeless population, there's real characters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some interesting people, and they all have different stories. Some of them are not very nice stories, but we're all very forward-looking here. So the environment here is, I think, a very engaging one.
It must be rewarding too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's extremely rewarding.
Sure.
Like, rewarding when I've talked to people about when I was in international development, part of it was to help create a more just and fair world. But you don't see a change, day to day. Here, there will be people who, if you walk by, you'll see them with their backpack or luggage, and they're leaving to go to an apartment. So, every day there's something good happening here.
That's nice.
Yeah.
We're not as police officers, we're told a lot that in our field we see a lot of the negative aspects of being a community. It seems like you see a lot of the good.
Yes. Yeah.
That's nice.
We certainly do.
Yeah.
I guess you already answered what's the best part of working your job.
Yeah,
What would the worst be?
The worst is that homelessness is growing, despite all the work that we're doing. There's more people that become homeless. So that's the worst part. Is we'd like to see that from the work that we do, that we're having an effect, that homeless numbers are going down, and they're not going down yet. But I think if we stay on the direction we're on, have the programs in place that we have, I think we'll start to see a decline. But so far, that's the worst thing.
Do you know why the numbers are going up?
Well, we don't control the conditions in the world around us that cause people to show up at our doors. We just deal when they show up at the doors.
Yeah.
So we take care of it. But it's interesting you ask that, because there's a whole host of reasons that can be related to immigration, and people don't find their place in this society. They end up without a job and that kind of thing. Housing prices are going up. It's more expensive.
True. Yeah.
Probably if you're looking for apartments, they're much more expensive now than they were even 2 or 3 years ago. So if you're on a very marginal income, and you just can't find a place to live, and if you can't find a place to live, then they show up at our doors. So there's a number of things like that that are it's funny, because we've almost got full employment here, very low unemployment rate, right? If you want a job, you can just get it pretty well.
Yeah.
And so you'd think, well, then why doesn't everybody work and then get an apartment? But the problem is when you've got full employment is that creates inflation. More people have money in their pockets, so they can pay more. So prices go up, and that's for housing and that kind of thing.
It's a vicious circle.
Yeah, it is. So, but when you ask that, it is one of the elements of homelessness that we're starting to focus on, because as I just said, it's when they come to our doors that we deal with them.
Yeah.
What we started to think is, yeah, but what role can we play so that they don't come to our doors in the first place?
Mhm.
And so we're starting to work on some prevention measures. So we work with the YMCA on a prison program. So because there's people who are inside our walls who were in prison, and then
Okay.
they're let out of prison and they don't have a place to go.
So then they go back.
So they end up on the street.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're working with the prison system to say, hey, you know when these people are leaving. They've got a release date, right?
Yeah.
So can't we work with them before they're released so that we can
Yeah.
find a place for them to be?
Yeah.
And the system hasn't been doing that, but we think we can play a role. So with the Y, we're doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Should really help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So what are some of the services and resources that you guys offer here?
We offer the whole, I would say, a whole range. And it's, first of all, emergency services. People who don't have a place to be,
Yeah.
they can come here and they'll get a bed, they'll get meals, they'll get a shower, they'll get a change of clothes, and they'll get seen by a counselor. So that's the emergency services. We have a triage center so that if you're not in our database, the very first experience that you have is you go to a triage center, which is up on our 5th floor here. And that really is just means we don't know who you are. So that's a place where we'll take all the people who are new to homelessness and we'll try to find out why you're there and see if we can find a way to get you out of here as quickly as possible. So that's a service. We have healthcare services in partnership with the Shum French Hospital just across the parking lot here.
Okay.
And so we have psychiatrists who are in here. We have social workers, we have nurses, we have criminologists, we have educators. All of these are from the healthcare network, and they come here and work with the population, because before we created this program where they could come here, it was the homeless people who had to go to the hospital.
Okay.
And if you've been to hospitals, you know they're a little bit chaotic. You're never
Right.
sure if
Yeah.
you're in the right place,
Yeah.
and if you are suffering from a mental illness, and about 40% of homeless people are, then you're kind of disruptive too. And so the people over there want to get you out of there as quickly as possible because you're disrupting everything. And they don't know how to handle you and that kind of thing. So they end up with rapid, incorrect diagnoses, incorrect prescriptions. They get the pills and they come over here and they sell them because they have a street value and no beneficial health outcomes. So we said the problem is homeless people have to go to you. The solution is you have to come here. So since we've done that, and of course it's way cheaper for taxpayers to support health services inside a shelter as opposed to inside a hospital.
Yeah.
It's about maybe a third of the costs or something.
Yeah. And are they doing that on a volunteering basis?
No,
or
they're paid. They're paid.
Okay.
Not by us, they're paid by the healthcare.
Oh, okay.
So the doctor, instead of being over there, will be
We'll be over. Okay.
Then we also have housing
Okay.
that we actually have. Right above us, there's 30 units for men. We have about 300 units around the city. So then when we talk about if one of the solutions to homelessness is homes, and it's hard to find affordable housing, then we've got to be a part of that struggle.
Yeah.
So we've been moving more and more into housing, and now that's the biggest thing that we do. That's the single biggest service, is getting people from homelessness back into homes, and then giving them the support to stay housed. They're not homeless because they lost the keys to their apartment. Right?
Yeah.
They've got problems, and so just giving them keys to an apartment isn't going to be the complete solution for them. So we have to be there for them to give them support.
So you have different apartment buildings?
Yeah.
Or just like apartment?
Well, we have both. We have buildings,
Yeah.
and we have access to just the regular apartments that you'll be looking for when you want to move into the city.
Okay.
So we speak to building owners and we get units, and the individual gets a rent subsidy, so they get the part of their rent already paid.
That's awesome.
The owner at first, when we go to talk to them, is saying the Old Brewery Mission, not sure about this, but once they realize they get guaranteed payment at the first of every month, they don't get that for some of their other tenants.
Yeah.
And if there's any problems with the person inside the apartment, we'll go and deal with it.
Okay.
And, like I say, for the owner, for other tenants, they don't have that support, so
Okay.
they end up actually being very happy to rent
Yeah,
from
makes
to us.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are they allowed to stay there for like a limited time, or they can stay there permanently?
They sign a lease with the owner.
Okay.
It's not us. It's not us signing the lease. They sign the lease, and then we try to create the conditions that help them stabilize in that environment.
Okay.
And we get about a 92% success rate, 92
Wow.
to 95%.
That's
You would think it
amazing.
would be like 50-50,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's 92%.
Wow.
And we're talking about tough cases too.
Yeah.
Some of the people you see pushing carts around, and you say they're going to be homeless for the rest of their lives, they're now housed.
Wow.
And,
That's fantastic.
better
Yeah.
off for it. Yeah.
So they could stay there for the rest of their lives.
That's right.
if-
Yep.
Wow.
They stay there for the rest of their lives, and of course the subsidies are it's a program. We don't pay the
Mhm.
donors aren't paying for the subsidies. It's the city that has a rent subsidy program.
Okay.
That's cool. What percentage, roughly, of those that come here use the services that you provide?
100%. Everybody who comes use those services.
Yeah.
Do they have access to telephones?
Yep. Yep. Well, funny, more and more of them have cell phones. You would
Oh,
think, do they really? Yeah, they'll have like a daily plan or whatever, just a card, or I don't know how it works, but
Yeah.
and so they have cell phones. You'll see them often with we've got plugs, and they'll have their phone plugged in, and so I guess it's become more affordable, cell phones. But also we have a
Yeah.
phone available for people.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. This is a weird question. What kind of clientele comes here? So like age, background.
Yeah. Well, probably the average age of our clients is around 45.
45 years old.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's the diversity of Montreal. So
Okay.
if you went into the shelter, you would see people of all racial diversities.
Okay.
You would see all ages, francophone, anglophone,
Mhm. Okay.
that kind of thing. People who have been police officers and have ended up on the wrong side of things.
Okay.
People who have had professions, people who have families and have just lost the connection to their families
Yeah.
because of various things, addictions sometimes,
Mhm.
a mental illness, and the family just can't cope any
Yeah.
longer.
Really be anyone.
Increasingly gambling addictions.
Oh, wow.
And that's
Okay,
where
yeah.
you'll often find like someone who was a
Yeah.
professional, like a police officer,
Yeah.
and they lose everything degrades because they've got a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, so there's the people who are here are not all society's losers or whatever.
Mhm.
There are people just like you and I who have made maybe bad decisions or had an illness
Mhm.
and ended up on the street.
And do you get a lot of youth homeless?
There's significant youth homelessness in Montreal.
Mhm.
We don't deal with that. We deal with it's adults 18 and over. But
Okay.
if you're 18 to 24 and you show up at our doors, we'll channel you over to a shelter that's focused
For the
specifically
youth.
on you.
Okay.
And why do they do that? Have specific youth?
I guess
Well,
for security reasons?
Yeah, it has something to do with that. It has to do with the reality of being a young person and homeless is not the same as somebody who's 55
Yeah.
or 60 and
That's true.
homeless.
Yeah.
And if a young person who's 18 or 19 comes there's some hardened people inside this building, There are people who have had prison histories, long prison
Yeah.
histories.
Yeah.
You don't want young people who are struggling, obviously if they're homeless, they're struggling. You don't want them mixing with people who will give them tricks to survive on the street that are
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
not going to help them in the longer run. So you
Uh-huh.
want to really separate those populations if you can
Makes
as much as
sense.
possible.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges and struggles that homeless people face?
Survival,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, in winter.
Yeah.
The challenges they face are ones related to stereotypes people have of them.
Mm-hmm.
They are living lives of exclusion in society. They are shamed. They are ashamed themselves, and
Mhm.
people around them are either afraid or reluctant. You don't want to engage, you don't want to talk to them, you don't want to have anything to do with them, so they feel that. They
Yeah.
feel the exclusion around them all the time. They do not get along with the police. Often they are in a park and they have no other place to go, and people complain that Buddy is lying on a park bench. The police will throw him out of the park. He's got nowhere else to go. The police are trying to solve a public issue. It's not police being unkind. They've got a job to do, right? Or someone's sleeping in front of your storefront, and you can't run a store that way. And so the police, so they have a tense relationship with the police.
And I guess they're more prone to medical diseases too.
Well, they're vulnerable. Yeah. They age more rapidly than the general population. It's hard living in the street. They don't choose the food they eat. They eat what we give them, and we try to obviously feed people properly. But we're always doing it on a donation-based, diet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we do pretty well. So they can't get medical attention. Often they don't have a healthcare card. That's some of the things we have to do is help them get all the cards they need, their identification cards. So those are issues.
Okay. What is your approach when interacting with persons who come to the brewery?
Show them they're at the right place. Treat them as anyone else, would. Yeah. Or that we would want to be treated, with respect, with dignity. What are you doing here? Why are you here? That kind of thing.
And are there times when you need to change how you interact with people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they show up and they're under the influence of whatever whatever substance they're using, whether it's drugs or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they can be violent. Their mental illness sometimes leads them to behave in certain ways that mean we have to sort of adapt. But the goal is to keep them attached to our services. So we don't expel people very often. Sometimes we have to, but we try not to, because once you expel a homeless person from here, where are they going to go?
No.
Do you, this might be a weird question, but do you search them before they come in, like in case they have any weapons or?
That's an excellent question, and we do spot checks.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a metal detector coming in.
Okay.
And there's some people we'll check more regularly because we know them.
Yeah.
And we think, oh, buddy there, but it's also, we don't want them to bring alcohol into the building.
Yeah, exactly.
We confiscate it and give it back to them the next morning, so we don't, take it and pour it down the drain. We're not judgmental about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we just don't want people consuming on the floors.
Makes sense.
But they do.
Yeah.
They get through.
Have you ever dealt with someone that was violent, and what did you do?
Yeah.
Well, what I do is I call the security staff. In my position, I don't have to, but the staff here do it all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you usually do if there's someone being violent? Where do you put them, I guess?
Well, there's a couple of things. Depends on the level of violence, obviously, and what's caused them to be violent. If if it's two guys that are fighting, we'll try to separate them. Just that kind of basic stuff. Okay. If they don't like the service they've received from us, and that's made them angry, then we'll try to get a counselor to get them to sit down. Our general approach when someone's violent is to give them space. Don't confront them right away.
Yeah.
Give them space. Ask them to explain. Ask them to re-explain.
Mm-hmm.
Ask questions about it, to get them talking about it, because that tends to bring down the tensions once they feel they're being heard.
Okay.
That's not always possible, and when it's not and someone's swinging, then we call you guys.
Okay.
You can feel. You can do it. Put them in a death grip. I don't know what you do.
So, as a CEO here, what would you say is the most important part of your job?
Most important part of my job is securing the resources, the funding to get it. Government relations, media relations.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the media a lot. That's how we get a message out about some of the things we've been talking about now.
Mhm.
So my role is very external, and then just picking the right people to run the services and getting a good team built here,
For sure.
and then trying to get Nat's father to golf with me. Usually unsuccessful with that.
Oh yeah. Even Phil, you can't get him to go.
Who are the donors?
All kinds.
Yeah.
Big corporations, so the big
Okay.
banks, Cogeco is a donor,
That's great.
Power Corp, and then individuals. We have people who will send us a check for
Wow.
$20. We have a bunch of fundraising techniques and programs.
Mhm.
If you wanted to get a bunch of you together to serve a supper, for example, it's a $2,000 donation, but if everybody or their family puts in $100 each, then
Mhm.
15 or 20 people come and they can serve. We show them we take them on a tour, and then they can serve the meal to, they'll serve as much as 700 meals in
Wow.
in an evening, and so it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's nice to hear
Yeah.
that a lot of people are so willing. I used to work at a mental health organization.
Oh yeah.
And in the community, like in Vaudreuil, a lot of the restaurants would donate food for them because most of them are on welfare and
Yeah.
coming here and they don't have anything to eat, don't have enough to do groceries and
Right. That's very meaningful.
Yeah.
That kind of. It's great to see. Yeah, that restaurants will. We have restaurants around here that will
Yeah.
drop off. A bakery that will have muffins that
yeah,
are
sometimes
fine, but they
come
just
in.
okay, they won't be good tomorrow, and we're
Yeah.
not going to sell them now that it's the afternoon. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
the Via Rail, the train, the train company, they bring us the leftover sandwiches and stuff. And,
Mhm.
Mhm.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. There are some negative stereotypes about homeless people. What have you learned in your work with homeless persons that might debunk some of these stereotypes?
Just talk to them. You'll find out very quickly. Just
Yeah.
start talking. You go outside and talk to some of the people and say, "Are you here? What are you doing?" First of all, they'll talk to you. You're not in danger. They're not dangerous people, and so that's what you learn. They are not hungry, so when they say, "Give me money for food," they don't need it because there's no reason for a homeless person to be hungry in Montreal. So those are some stereotypes. They are people who can talk about the Habs games and can talk about the political situation. They'll have an opinion to express. They've got ideas. They have a past. They have, in many cases, family. And so they just need to be, that's one of the things that we do. Here, I'll show you an example, actually. One of the things we try to do in our publications is humanize them, because if you've read any articles on homelessness, like in the newspaper or online, they usually preface it with a photo of some guy,
Yeah.
lying
Yeah, that's
on a
very true.
Always.
cardboard,
Always.
or bumming for money and that kind of thing. But what we've done is these are actual photos we've taken. They're not stock photos or anything of homeless people.
Wow.
And this is just taking their picture, not now pretend you're happy and look out the window.
Mhm.
It's just just homeless people, and so we don't do the black and white photos
Yeah.
of dire
You just look up
misery.
homeless on Google and
And
that's
you'll just
all you
get
see.
that's all you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did a project on
Sad,
it.
depressing.
Yeah.
It's-
And then we'll tell a little bit of their story. But those are they just look like people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regular people.
So that's what we I'll give you a copy of that. Got an English one if you want.
What should the public, communities, governments do to help homeless persons?
Well, each one has a different role. Governments should coordinate. The city, the province, and the feds should coordinate better than they do. Talk to each other, organize one strategy. Each one has a strategy to deal with homelessness, but they're not talking to each other, and it's not coordinated. So I think there's a waste of our money. There are too many organizations working in the field of homelessness in Montreal,
Yeah.
so that dilutes the money.
Yeah.
So that's what governments should do: coordinate and tighten up. on the services to have more impact from the money that is already available for homelessness. Individuals should donate to organizations if they want to participate in helping to deal with and end homelessness. Then that's the way to do it. And then if the public, if they meet a homeless person, look them in the eye, say hi. You don't have to engage them in a conversation if you want, if you don't want. If they're bumming for money, decide what you want to do. There's no right or wrong thing. But don't ignore them. That's what I would say.
Have you witnessed or heard of interactions between police officers and homeless people that where the police officers don't treat the homeless fairly?
Yes. There was, in January of 2017, Jimmy Cloutier, have you heard of this?
I don't think so.
He was a guy who was using our services here, and he was killed by the police just outside our doors over here in January of 2017. Now, he had been elsewhere, and he had apparently cut someone, but I think with a plastic knife, like in a cafeteria, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the police were coming to get him, and just things went from bad to worse.
Okay.
And the tension built. In the ways I was talking about how we reduce tensions, that was not the techniques that the police applied, and they ended up shooting and killing him right here. So that was the fourth homeless guy that the police had killed in 4 years. And each time it happened, I reached out to the police chief, Montreal police chief, and I said, look, we've got some techniques that we employ that we'd like to share with the police. If you think we can be helpful, we'd like to do that. And the police never responded. But when it happened right outside our doors, I said, I'm demanding a meeting with the police chief. And we sat down, and I said, I've got some things that I think you need to think of putting in place so that this doesn't happen again. And it involves training of the police in de-escalation methods.
Yeah.
I'm sure you use that. I'm sure you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
So
they're lacking.
Yeah. You have to realize you're in a very different position than we are when we're dealing with it. We're not wearing badges and carrying equipment and wearing a uniform. Once you do, you're already at a bit of a disadvantage in a way. It'd be better if you were in jeans and, just dressed as you are, kind of.
Yeah.
It's less intimidating. But what I said is, okay, so it had to be training. And then I said, we have to create opportunities for the police to interact with homeless people outside of a conflict situation. Because right now it's only when a homeless person is bothering somebody, they call the police and the police come. They're always dealing with a problem with a homeless person. And so I said, we've got a cafe here, an internet cafe. Just come and get a coffee. You don't even have to talk to anybody. Just walk in, sit down, have a coffee on your beat, and then go on. If you want to talk to people, go ahead. Just so that they can see you. And then come and serve suppers is another thing that we said. And I said, when you come and serve suppers, and they do about 4 times a year, groups of police, I said, wear your uniform. Don't come in civilian clothes. We have to see that you're police. And so they do that, and now it's amazing. The first time the police came to serve supper, there were a lot of guys who just stayed away. I'm not going in there, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And now it's all of that is broken down. And
that's awesome.
So it doesn't mean that there are not situations with that are tense and that kind of thing.
I'm sure there always will be. But
Well, the police have a job to do, and that's to control the safety of the society that we're in. And sometimes homeless people need to be removed from a situation.
Right.
So I don't argue with that. We don't always have to treat people with kid gloves, but the starting should be to try to de-escalate. We do training now. We've trained 900 police officers and we train all the recruits. So at some point we'll probably be involved in a session.
That's great. That's awesome.
Do you think generally police officers treat the homeless? I worded that wrong. How do you think police officers treat the homeless regularly? Like, is it?
How they do? There's the little, I'll give you that, it's a little section on the things we do with the police. How do they? It's hard to answer that as a blanket statement. There are some that are very sensitive. There's some people that you can see really will give time to a situation, and there's others that, there's some people, you probably see them in your class, that you can think, once they're out there, they're going to be real,
I can definitely point them
real
out.
assholes.
Yeah.
They're going to wear that uniform, and they are like, now I'm, I'm somebody. So you can see people in your class. So that's the same way in the police.
Okay.
There are
You need a mix of authority and compassion.
Yeah.
Some people just are lacking in one area.
Yeah, they got the authority down.
For sure, yeah.
They need to work on the compassion. Yeah, and sometimes it has something to do with the personality of the student, the person.
For sure.
Is what life have they had? Is this the first time they ever felt that they were being respected, or they felt always disrespected, and now, darn it all, they're going to respect me because I've got the gun and I've got the badge. So there's the psychology of being a police officer, is very complicated.
That's why they encourage us to volunteer so much.
Yeah.
They give us opportunities,
exactly.
like emails and emails of volunteer.
Great. Yeah.
Be in your community.
Yes,
as much as
excellent.
possible.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this, I bet. Homeless,
Yeah, exactly.
interview and stuff.
Yeah, it's very important to remember the people around you in society, because, again, as a police officer, the bulk of your work is fixing something that's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And so you can start to look at the people around you in your society as problems rather than people. And
Yeah,
for sure. That's why it's like you're always looking at the negative. But it's hard to
step out of that.
You have to remember that right now, as we're talking, society's going around about us in a pretty peaceful way.
Yeah.
But something might happen, and then you fix it. But by and large, things tend to work.
Yeah. What are some challenges that police officers might face when interacting with the homeless police?
I mentioned one. You're wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
So right away, whoops. No matter who you are as a person, you're not seen as a person.
Yeah.
That was part of what we wanted to do with this. I said creating opportunities for contact outside of conflict. It wasn't just so the police could learn about the homeless, but it was also so the homeless could learn about the police. And one of the things they found at these supper services was, wow, they can have a conversation and they're laughing and they're talking and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden you realize, hey, everybody in this equation is human. And so I think that's one of the challenges is, whether you like it or not, you're wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
So people already right away are creating an impression of you that has nothing to do with who you are.
There are stereotypes on the homeless, but there are also stereotypes on the police.
Yeah, exactly.
They
Yeah.
clash.
I'm sure,
Yeah. So I think as a police officer, the challenge is not to take things personally. It's not because you're you.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
the
they're
uniform.
teaching us that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roxy?
Number 8?
Yeah.
Well, we kind of answered that. It's how would you suggest law enforcement officers improve their skills, services? You're already,
Yeah, we're doing that.
you're doing that right now. So. Do the homeless have any values or cultural practices that officers should know about in order to serve them better?
It's an interesting question. Cultural values from the point of view of homelessness. Well, I think what they should realize, I'm not sure if this is the right answer, not cultural in the sense of a Sikh or Hindu or but the reality of being homeless distinguishes you from the rest of the population in that you have few other alternatives.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, sometimes it's because you're stuck there. You don't have another place to be. They don't sleep on park benches because they're so comfortable to sleep on, right? It's because they don't have another place to be. Or they're not sleeping well at night because if you tried to sleep in a shelter with 72 beds in one dorm, bunk beds and all of the disruptions, and you can imagine what that's like. You don't sleep well, so during the day you're exhausted. And so, you end up on a park bench. And so I think the police, it doesn't mean that we should tolerate people sleeping on park benches. Parks are for everybody, not just for homeless people. So, but the way in which you interact should take into account that the culture of being homeless is one of deprivation and scarcity. You don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
So I think that should be something that...
No, it's a good answer.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Is there anything we're
Missing?
Missing, yeah.
Boy, we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
No, I think we've covered kind of all of the bases.
Yeah.
If when you leave and you think, oh darn, I should have asked that question, then just give me a call or something like that, and let me know.
All right.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.